the word that you mentioned that really resonated with me was personalized. And I think when it comes to open enrollment, personalized can't be overlooked. As I mentioned, everyone's going through different things in their life. Everyone's has a different challenge that they're experiencing. If we're not personalizing something like mental health, we're not going to see the engagement level and the impact that we're looking to accomplish.
Welcome to the Navigate People First podcast, where we bring together wonderful leaders who are shaping the future of workplace well-being. In this episode, I'm joined with our Vice President of Product and Strategy, Jenn Lowry, and Ryan Kellogg, Senior Vice President of Sales at Talkspace. Ryan has extensive experience leading high-performing sales teams and transforming commercial strategy. As a U.S. Army veteran, Bronze Star recipient, Ryan has managed multi-billion-dollar revenue portfolios and guided organizations through growth, change, and adversity. Ryan holds an MBA from Fordham University and a BS in Business Management from Providence College. Today, we are going to explore how organizations can prevent HR burnout, support veterans, and build a culture of care through access to mental health solutions. Let's get started. So Ryan and Jenn, welcome to the podcast. I really appreciate you joining us today. And I want to start out, Ryan, maybe give the listeners a background, a little bit about yourself and your experiences. It's so unique, and how maybe your military experience has shaped your approach to leadership and advocacy in the work that you do at Talkspace.
Not a problem at all. Really happy to be here. Just thinking back on my own career, you're currently with Talkspace, but over the past 15 years or so, both in behavioral health and actually lab diagnostics. I started my career, believe it or not, in the military. I got out as a captain. I served for 6 years. I can remember it like it was yesterday, talking to my father in high school about, what do I want my career to look like? How do I want to start? And I looked at him and said, I want to go into the Army and give that a shot, thinking, I would just spend 4 years in the military. I'd be an ROTC cadet at a school. And I accepted an ROTC scholarship at Providence College. And my senior year at Providence was 9/11. And from that moment on, my life changed forever. Within 6 months of graduating from college, I was a platoon leader serving at the time I was stationed in Germany, and we were preparing to go to Iraq in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom. And as a young 22-year-old second lieutenant in the military, just fresh out of college, I had a platoon of over 25 different soldiers ranging from ages 17 all the way up to, I think the eldest was 45 at the time. And I thought, all right, Ryan, you've got to be super tough. You've got to be super buttoned up because you're the leader. And it's really important that you get in front of this group and you command respect and you lay the rules down. And this is the direction we're going in. But me even saying it makes me feel awkward because it was a very rigid version of myself. I can remember my first 2 or 3 formations getting up there and saying that, everyone standing at attention and me walking back and forth. And I remember after one of the formations, my platoon sergeant comes up to me and he says, "Hey, sir, can I speak to you for a second?" I said, "Oh, yeah, no problem." He brings me around the side of a Paladin. We were field artillery men at the time. And he says, "Hey, you can either lead with this." And he grabs me really hard on my collar and he's pointing to my rank, where my rank is sitting. "Or you can lead with this." And he gives me a very deliberate oomph to my chest, to where my heart is. And, it woke me up. And I said, you know what? He's right. This is really important. I need to lead with my heart. I need to be who I am, my authentic version of myself. And that's to get into the trenches. That's to be friends with my colleagues, to care for them, to show that I am living their shared hardship at the time. And lo and behold, we wound up going forward and serving in Iraq. We deployed twice together. But that's a lesson that I carried throughout the course of my career as I've led different types of sales teams, different types of people, different types of characters. Everyone is consuming information at different points of their lives at different rates. what we're listening to on this podcast. Someone who a listener out there might hear it differently than others. It's important that you're trying to meet people where they are, particularly when you're working with something as sensitive as mental health. So knowing that coming forward, it's been really important for me joining Talkspace, knowing my military background. One thing that, although I was living my authentic leadership style, I wasn't necessarily being true to myself and caring for myself. Self-care is such an important part of life. When I think of HR leaders out there, focusing on the stress that you're dealing with in the workplace, but also checking in with yourself. I had gotten really good over the course of about 15 to 20 years of just compartmentalizing the heck out of whatever I was experiencing, stuffing it down, down, down. But the older I've gotten, the more mature I've gotten, the more awake I have become about my own emotions. And I've worked on really dealing with that. And part of being at Talkspace is wanting to speak to others and reminding them that self-care is so important that we need to address it and stay in front of it.
Ryan, I'm so grateful for you telling that story, and I love the perspective. And I'll just say, when leaders care out loud, employees, our troops, they feel safe to do the same. And so that caring out loud as a leader is something very important to us. And speaking of one of our leaders here at Navigate, Jenn Lowry, who leads our product and our strategy around that, Jenn, we looked at the opportunity to add to our equation of culture care and clinical, and how digital therapy fits into the broader well-being ecosystem. A lot of wonderful folks doing some wonderful things, but maybe talk about Talkspace and how we came together, and that opportunity to bring that access to our family and friends that work with us at Navigate.
Yeah, absolutely. And our mission here at Navigate is to do good things. And part of that is always been to be able to support the holistic well-being of the people we serve. And the people we serve are not just participants, but it's our HR leaders, right? And we recognize that mental health is such a crucial component of wellness. And Ryan, I'm so glad you mentioned that self-care aspect that tends to be forgotten. It's so crucial that we're providing easy, accessible mental health resources. And it's been a priority for us to be able to offer these solutions as a part of our ecosystem. And so as we went through that vetting process this past year, and looking for that mental health vendor, Talkspace really checked all of those boxes. Talkspace offers a wide variety of services, from the digital platform Talkspace Go to psychiatry. So it really allows our clients, those employers and the HR leaders, to really offer the right level of services that are unique to their needs that they're experiencing, and be able to grow based on what those needs are. And something we also love about Talkspace is the personalized approach, that for those one-on-one services, therapy, individuals are matched with a therapist through evaluation. It does consider their individual preferences and specific requirements, which that personalized approach really helps ensure that there's a connection, a meaningful, effective connection between that therapist and the participant. And I think I have to mention that we really value a straightforward implementation process. The ease of implementation process with Talkspace is amazing. It really allows our clients to get those vital resources available to the employees faster, which really does make a difference for people's lives. And I'll just add there, Troy, that Talkspace has been amazing to add to our partnerships. It allows us to really enhance our overall suite of partners. It amplifies our commitment to creating a truly comprehensive support system that does address culture and care with that clinical support. And Ryan, if we can go ahead and go into questions about HR, we're right in the midst of open enrollment. HR leaders are really feeling that pressure when it comes to open enrollment. So I'm curious, are there specific unique features and tools within Talkspace and that platform that are particularly beneficial during open enrollment season for leaders?
Great question, Jen. And I appreciate what you had to say. Thank you very much for speaking volumes about Talkspace. The word that you mentioned that really resonated with me was personalized. And I think when it comes to open enrollment, personalized can't be overlooked. As I mentioned, everyone's going through different things in their life. Everyone's has a different challenge that they're experiencing. If we're not personalizing something like mental health, we're not going to see the engagement level and the impact that we're looking to accomplish. So Talkspace really does try to walk the walk when it comes to personalizing our approach to our mental health resources, part of which is making sure that you're matched and partnered with a one-on-one relationship with a licensed therapist. We have something called a quick match algorithm that is an onboarding tool that we use to ensure that you're matched with your ideal therapist in a very timely manner. If you sign into Talkspace today, within hours, you will be matched with that therapist and have immediate access, both through asynchronous messaging, which is simply messaging or audio or video on your phone, or that one-to-one live video sessions that you can accomplish with your therapist. And we find that to be really important because we want to make sure that you're developing rapport with a therapist. If you're not developing rapport, you're not developing that trust. You're not starting to know, like, and feel good about that individual, which likely means that utilization goes down. So we want to make sure that there is 24/7 access to the same therapist with continuity of care in mind. The other piece there, given the market and given the complexities of mental health, but more importantly, how crowded things have gotten, it's important to distinguish who you're partnering with between either just a standard point solution where you have a member that has a username and a password versus a organization that is going to create a culture of wellness and that 360-degree environment of self-care that we all aim to create. That's specifically important when you're talking to in a digital environment, right? It's harder. So you have to be more deliberate and have a plan around it. So that's something that we really try to practice at Talkspace. We create different types of engagement roadmaps that are specific to each of our clients and customers to make sure that they feel good, they're bought into what we're trying to accomplish, but we're setting mutual goals and we're all reaching to achieve it and holding ourselves accountable along the way, almost as if we're an extension of that office. I always say that our dedicated account management team, they are meant to feel like employees of the customer to ensure that that wellness culture really is initiated.
Ryan and Jen, when we think about the work that we do, it really is about serving those that are helping serve others. And for us, I believe that we talk about we're privileged to be able to work in the health and well-being space. And I just want to emphasize the mission of Talkspace and Navigate. I really appreciate the alignment there and helping people feel better and do better, and actually stay at the company longer, that we're engaging them and caring for them. Jen, when you think about the data and the engagement insights that we're able to pull from Navigate to help align with Talkspace's clinical outcomes, maybe talk about that, because we talk about early interventions, continuous access to care. Maybe talk about that data and that engagement insights that we have that kind of help bring that alignment to Talkspace.
Yeah, it was great to hear, Ryan, you talking about how you're helping organizations reach their specific goals. And that was another key piece in our vetting process that we found, because we do the same. And each of these organizations, each of our clients, these HR leaders have unique challenges and unique goals. So it's important we're meeting not just the participants where they are in that personalized approach, but the clients where they are. So as we dig into data, we're looking at engagement, and not just looking at engagement, those who are highly engaged and what they're engaged in, and what are those early indicators for potential mental health. Are they engaging in mindfulness activities? Do they have higher stress levels? Do they have low social connections or at risk for social connections? Is balance a little bit out of place in their life? And we actually track this through our surveys that we utilize, very similar to a health risk assessment. We can look at that data, provide that data to our clients so that they can move their program requirements or evolve their program over time to make sure we're targeting the right behaviors or the right programs, such as Talkspace. So if we're seeing higher levels of stress or low mindfulness or awareness or low social connections, again, those are where we want to be able to recommend Talkspace to our clients so that they can implement those services.
I love that. I always tell our team and our customers that you need data to make good decisions. It's our job to empower a customer to make good decisions. And by showing them the utilization metrics, by showing them different clinical assessments, we're doing it. And it's important that not only are we showing the data, but we're tracking progress as well with the intent of accomplishing the goal.
Yeah. And I think about how important it is to get ahead, right, before individuals are passing that threshold of really needing the critical care. It is important to get those people the access they need, but how great would it be? And this is where, what we do to be proactive in their mental health and getting them the services before they have those critical measures.
I want to touch on too, when you think about HR burnout and mental health, there's common stressors around, for HR professionals and the link between emotional fatigue and organizational performance. When we think about real world examples that, Ryan, that maybe you've had when it comes to creating that environment where folks acknowledge unique mental health needs, maybe give the audience an example of maybe a real world example that you've worked on or have seen success in.
So part of tracking our results is making sure that we're looking at the specifics. So not only benchmarking our overall book of business, benchmarking it to the industry, but benchmarking it to specific industries as well. And when I look at the different clinical assessments, you see certain things that are reoccurring. I would say that our top three most presenting problems that we have that are consistent throughout most of our reporting systems are anxiety being number one, anger and depression being number two, and anger management being number three. So anxiety, depression, and anger management being the three most presenting problems. So what do we do when those types of situations continue to persist? And how do you address each of them specifically? So at Talkspace, we have something called Talkspace Go, which is a personalized app. Within that app, you have the ability to look at different types of content. I want to look at that content, but I don't want it to always just be on the individual. I want to make sure that we're creating more of a consistent messaging. So a real world example of how we implement that, when you look at a calendar year, one thing that we're very particular about is ensuring that each calendar month is themed something specific that is tracking trends. So for example, here we are in October time period. We just got past the back to school mindset. Back to school creates a lot of stress, not only for employers, but the employees that have children going back to school as well. There's higher tension. So what we'll do in mid-August and into September is create a cadence of communication, over communicating the need to be in front of that. So when you do see spikes, we've also created something to address that market. So Talkspace has been around since 2012. We were actually the first to industry. We created a virtual mental health approach through asynchronous messaging. So to do that, we have the research that helps us identify different ways to create services. And one of which that we've really focused on over the past year and a half is called Talkspace for Teens. And that addresses specific needs of adolescents, ages 13 to 17. A 13 to 17-year-old individual digests information differently than everyone else, right? So we want to make sure that all of the content that individual is consuming is curated to that age population. I named those three highest, most presenting problems. When you look at that adolescent group, it's much more geared more towards troubling with relationships, body image, struggling with school, all of which is specific to them. So we need to make sure that we're creating content, and we have specialized therapists that are developing that adolescent group. And personally, I look at that also as a strategy to combat stigma. Stigma is the number one reason why people are not pursuing mental health resources. If we can go upstream a little bit and focus on that adolescent population, by the time they're of adult age, I'd like to think that it's a bit more normalized and that we're focusing on different things where more people are gaining access to mental health.
Yeah, Ryan, I love what you guys are doing with the Talkspace team and in partnering with the school system. And I believe you guys even piloted that program with some schools in the Northeast.
That's right. So about a year and a half ago, we started with New York City. We actually partnered with the city of New York. We call it Teen Space, which is specific to New York. We're providing mental health resources to over 375,000 students within the 5 boroughs in New York. It's really where we cut our teeth with the program. A stat that I think is really interesting, that's probably not a surprise to the group. When you look at our overall book of business, about 70% of our members really leverage the asynchronous messaging aspect of the service. When you look at that adolescent population, it's 96% of adolescents are leveraging the messaging aspect of it. So obviously texting is much more prevalent in that market. But it's helped us develop different types of strategies, and we've used it to our advantage. We've actually moved from New York. We've added the city of Baltimore. We have the city of Seattle, and it continues to compound and grow throughout. So some really good numbers and some really exciting trends that we're seeing, particularly within the adolescent population. And it's not just limited to municipalities, city and state. It can also be for dependents. So as we grow that content, we also talk to our current customers about you can leverage this for your dependents as well. And you have access to all of the Talkspace for Teens content for your dependents. And I see that as a trend where more and more people are asking really good questions about how do I focus on dependents?
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. And I just, again, love what you guys are doing in that space. There's something else you said that I'm curious about as you were talking about the trends. And in August, seeing, higher anxiety with back to school and getting back to the HR burnout, I'm curious what what trends and data have you seen related to this open enrollment period, which is really that October, November period, and maybe getting into December. What are some of those mental health trends you guys see during that period?
So very similar. We also see a spike into October, November time period, anxiety being the number one reason why we see spikes there. And part of that is making sure that we're communicating the services well. I always believe that the more that we have buy-in from our HR representatives, the better. And how do you develop buy-in? It's to present different types of opportunities to personalize, as you had mentioned when we first started. So we work through different types of either webinar series or customized. We do ads, we do YouTube clips, but we leverage the HR personnel on the receiving end as well. The best partnerships that we have are those where it really truly feels like a partnership and we're both in the same ship and we're going in the same direction. So understanding that there is a spike in anxiety, particularly as decision making is part of that open enrollment process. How do we counter that? It's by over communicating, over educating, training, and making sure that people are aware of their decisions to help squelch some of that anxiety that they might be dealing with during that period of time.
Ryan, one of the things that we want, we continue when we work with our partners and we think about, we always think about that member first, and we want that member to have a very streamlined experience. And so as we're reinforcing the clinical solution side, caring for folks and connecting that culture, maybe talk about the importance of that right resource at the right time, but also that right follow through of user experience when we're connected.
Sure. I know we've all been on the receiving end of a wonky user experience, right? And what does that develop? That spikes frustration, that anxiety starts to go up. So it's so important to make sure that we're streamlining any implementation process. And frankly, that's part of why Navigate was so appealing to work with as well. Understanding your goals of culture care and clinical solutions align so well with the values that we have here at Talkspace. It's so important to make sure that when a member is going forward to leverage the services, that is a ideal or optimal user experience. We can't afford, particularly in a digital environment, for that to be frustrating. As I'm speaking to the group right here, I'm thinking of times where I have had frustration, right? You always remember the frustrating times. You don't always remember the positive effect. But that's part of because you're focused on the service and the experience as opposed to what's driving that frustration. So I couldn't express more how important I feel about an optimal member experience with anything that they're trying to accomplish. That's how you're going to drive engagement. One of the things I lead our implementation team as well, and our implementation director, she's so detail oriented, and that is important. You only have one opportunity to make a first impression, right? I've had contract renewals 3 years down the road, and I'll talk to them about our updated services. And so often someone will say, well, Ryan, I love Talkspace. And I'll ask them why. And they say, you know what? I remember how I felt when I first started with you 3 years ago. And those 2 to 3 weeks, I felt like I was the most important person in the room. That's important. And we owe it to our customers, particularly when we're focused on mental health.
I don't know if we're ever going to be able to prevent HR burnout, but what we can do is support the resiliency and build a culture of care through this access that when it comes to the mental health solution that we have within what we're doing at Navigate and what you're doing at Talkspace. So we're grateful for the opportunity. We're grateful for the importance of early intervention and continuous access to care and this partnership with Talkspace. And so Ryan and Jenn, thanks for joining. You guys know at the end, we have to have our best day ever segment. So Jenn, you know what this is about. So kick it off for us.
Sure. Fall is in the air. As I'm in Tennessee, so the leaves are changing. Last week, we went to a fall festival, which was really fun. They had a cakewalk, and I don't know if you guys know what a cakewalk was or is. I'm amazed at how many people didn't know what a cakewalk was. And I was all in. I did not win a cake, but somebody in our group did, which was really exciting. And then this weekend, we're continuing with the fall festivities, going to another pumpkin patch.
Love it. Ryan, what do you got?
I took a different angle at my best day ever. I know it said recent, but I thought just given my background, I wanted to share a story from when I was in the Army. So when I was first deployed to Iraq, I was told, Ryan, you're going to be a civil military liaison. And I thought, well, what does that mean? So what it meant was I was to go around different types of communities within Baghdad, which is where we were stationed, and try to figure out what are some ways that we can help fix what's going on, the infrastructure. And it was clear that right away there was no electricity. So I thought, all right, well, we're gonna get the electricity back on. We're gonna turn the lights back on. So we contracted with an electrical company, and we put up all of the electrical wires, and we were in this community, and it was thumbs up. Everyone was excited. The lights were on. It was great. And we all went to bed that night. We woke up the next day, and I had a bunch of people complaining to us that the electricity was out again. So I went back to the sector and I looked, and sure enough, all of the electrical wires that we had put up the day before were down, and all of the copper had been stripped, and they had sold the copper. So I said, all right, well, we got to put it back up. So we did it again. Next day, same exact thing. And I started going to each of the local sheiks of influence, and I'd say, hey, what's going on? And they'd say, well, I took that copper so that I could sell it to support my family. And the frustration there, I got it, but I wanted there was a need to communicate that this is about community. If we're all in it together, everyone has electricity. It's not necessarily just about your one house. And that took time. I brought people together. We had chai tea. We shared experiences. We talked and talked and talked. And eventually we were able to put up the electricity. It stayed on for, however long, and we were good to go. But I tell that story. One, I was proud of it, that I overcame that situation with the communication between the sheiks. There was a difference in language, culture, tribal things that I just didn't understand. But here we are, fast forward in a digital environment. It can be frustrating, particularly for HR leaders who are trying to put out a message that very often it can feel either thankless, which is frustrating, or falling on deaf ears, which is frustrating. I wanted to tell the story to say that I'm proof that you can overcome these obstacles. You just need to work extra hard to bring people together. And if it's not working, try different angles, talk about it, but don't stop trying to infuse change and that culture of collaboration.
Your best day ever super exceeded mine.
That's a pretty good best day ever right there. Captain Kellogg might be at the top of the list right there. I mean, hey, when leaders care out loud right there, you did it.
Your day sounds lovely.
It was great. I didn't win the cakewalk though. And how can I again, overcome that, Ryan, is what my question is.
Today's best ever moment is going to honor Sister Jean. If you know college basketball, you know that Sister Jean was the heart and soul of Loyola University basketball and a legend far beyond the basketball court. At 103 years old, she reminded us that joy, faith, and purpose never retire. Her energy, her smile, her belief in goodness is what made every day what she called her best day. And I just want to celebrate a very great life lived. And Sister Jean, I just want to say thanks for the bobblehead that my 81-year-old mother and I talk about at the beginning of every single basketball season, which is you, for showing us that when you lead with love and you do good things, the scoreboard always takes care of itself. So, Captain Kellogg, thank you for joining us today. Jenn Lowry, thank you for joining us. For all the HR people out there trying to do good things for other people, we appreciate you. We appreciate you carrying out loud and being a leader. For our listeners, let us know how we're doing. Share your support and share how you're supporting others during open enrollment and throughout the year. We'd love to hear from you and beyond. And we're grateful for all the things that you do for others every single day. Thanks, everybody. Take care. Keep doing good things. See ya.